All right, y'all, leading live to 99.5. I hear thunder outside the studio still as these afternoon storms are starting to bubble up out there. So be careful going home. Inevitably, when it's spotty like this, you're in and out of it. That can really be a situation where traffic gets all quagged up because people will run from the dry asphalt and the nice weather, and then suddenly you run into some traffic that's jammed up because of the rain. So just give yourself a little space out there today. And let's get everybody home. Loud thunder. Is it thundering up there on the hill, AJ, where you are right now? It's pretty loud over here.
Yeah, I see clouds right now, but I'm not seeing any ranges yet.
Okay. All right. Well, there's a little sort of mini update. We'll keep you posted if that turns into an issue on your drive home this afternoon. My man Danny Knowles with the Knowles Group bringing you the show tonight. Down day all across the board on the stock markets. The Dow down about 464. NASDAQ was even down today. It's been on a pretty good tear lately. A lot of stuff moving and shaking in the economy. And I always look at the market close when I think about Danny, and then I remind you that they just don't get all bent out of shape on down days or get too exuberant on up days, because that's what you've got to do in their business. You got to be steady. I was watching some football season preview stuff today, and it just reminded me of that. We expect our coaches to be calm during the game. I don't really want to coach losing their mind with too much excitement and blowing the game. You want them to be calm and keep your foot on the gas and win the ball game. And it's in some ways, philosophically, I guess it's kind of like that in what they do at the Knowles Group. You got to weather the storms, know that you're on the track, have confidence in your system. With experience, you can do that, and that's Danny, because since we were very young, by the way, we're lifelong friends and grew up together and graduated high school together. Danny he went in the military, and then he got right into this industry and worked his way to the top of the biggest firms in the country, firms you'd all know and recognize. But Danny is being Danny. This is the way we grew up. He wanted to have a more personal touch, have his own shop, do things his way, but use all that expertise. So he set up the Knowles Group years ago here in Birmingham. Good for us because he's back here now. I think they were in Dallas, Texas when they all decided to move back home to Sweet Home. And, man, it's turned into an incredible practice. His sons are in the practice with him now, and that's a true two-generation stable practice that can give you all the advice you need to get steady. And so let them help. Let them just sit down and see if it's a fit. And if it's not, it's not. But if it is, I think you'll find they can give you some sound advice, some strategic advice, just help you figure things out that are hard to calculate. You may have a general idea when you want to retire, but the money can dictate that. Inflation, things that will happen between now and then. You got to be ready for anything. That's why you use expert advice. And it's the knowlesgroup.com, N-O-L-E-S, the knowlesgroup.com. All right, I'm going to switch subjects. There's so much stuff to talk about. And go back to the state of Kentucky. I was just calling them out for the hypocrisy over Mitch McConnell being AWOL. But there was a big story in Kentucky yesterday. And it was happening really as the show was going on yesterday, and I didn't quite get a handle on it. I saw RFK Jr. standing there at a news conference, and I saw people stepping up to the microphone to talk. What I did not know was the drama that was unfolding, because I'm live on the radio talking, but I can just see all these monitors. It turns out that they have shut down I guess you would call it the licensing from a organization in Kentucky called Network for Hope. Now, how could that go wrong? Network for Hope, that sounds great. I want to give them money myself. What a great name. Network for Hope was apparently an organ donation system that they used in the state of Kentucky for organ donors. And this gets into some sensitive stuff, and I'm going to ramble on it for a little bit, and some of you may have some experience along these lines. But this was nightmare stuff. And AJ, I sent you some sound of one of the witnesses that came to the news conference to talk about it. Essentially, the story goes like this. This network were still harvesting organs from people who had decided to become organ donors on their driver's licenses, which I am one. And some of these people showed signs of life, but they went ahead and let them die and harvested the organs anyway. The accusation is they wanted the organ more than they wanted that person to live. And The implication is because they were an organ donor, nobody was there fighting for them, and they just let them die so they get the organs. That is ghoulish. That is Fauci level ghoulish. I used to joke when I first became an organ donor. I said, so if I'm in a car wreck and they pull my license out and decide I'm on life support, but hey, this one's got some good organs, let's just let him go. I used to kid about that. I didn't think in a real world that could ever be the case. So this Network for Hope, apparently these stories, the HHS had been investigating some of these same systems. So, they've got a lot going on. Their agency has been pilfered by the Somalians in Minnesota, by these setup operations out on the West Coast. They're finding so much fraud. And a lot of this goes back to, let me just go to policy for a minute. A lot of this goes back to Obamacare, when they wrecked all the rules and set up these pass-throughs, and a lot of the Obamacare money's being stolen. Some of these exchanges, which still, as decrepit as they are, still exist. There are stories this week where half the people on the exchanges are not really qualified to be on the exchanges and will have to be kicked off the exchanges because they're breaking the system. And that's exactly what Obamacare was going to do all along. We warned you. We warned you back in 2009 and 10 about this nonsense. But here we go. So in a system that sometimes has to police itself, and when the federal government being so detached, somebody finds a money-making scheme, and suddenly you've got these this pressure inside Kentucky. And by the way, if you think it's only in Kentucky, I think you're just being foolish. I think if there is a way to take advantage of these systems, it's going to happen in multiple locations. They just busted them in Kentucky. So the Center for Medicaid Services and the HRSA found a persistent I'll read here a quote from the story. Try to keep it as plain English as we can. They found consistent patient safety failures despite repeated oversight attempts, repeated warnings. There was corrective action plans that were not heeded, and they just kept finding examples, so they had to shut the thing down. Now, here's the insidious and sad part of that. There are people out there right now, if you've ever known somebody in your life that was on a wait list for an organ, it is such a critical system in our country that we can move organs around. It is insidious that somebody would, for their own gain or profit, or even, I don't know, maybe these people were motivated that we're trying to save lives here. We need that heart. It's going to harm people's trust in all that. And I think it has a chilling effect on people stepping up to be organ donors. I saw one lady today, I don't know what this person's background was, but commenting on this story, telling people, if you have checked the organ donor box on your license, you need to uncheck it now. They're going to kill you and take your organs. That's not the case. I think largely these systems work. I'll never forget one of the most touching stories I ever covered was, and I forgot how I got this assignment, but we were covering the heart transplant for a little baby in the NIC unit over between Children's and UAB, and they gave us access to the ER, the OR, and we got to watch the heart come in a little igloo cooler on a helicopter on the roof, and then follow it into the room, and then watch the surgeons do their work. Sadly, I got to know the baby's family, and that was so hard for me. I had a young son at the time, and sadly, the little baby didn't live but another 4 weeks, but they felt blessed that they even got a heart and got on the list to save the child's life. And that was so touching to me, and it's what made me want to be a donor. And I do trust the medical officials in our area with it, but that is a nightmare case. Now, I'm going to let this lady talk, and Trump is up right now signing executive orders, AJ. We'll monitor that. If he goes to questions, we'll dip into some of that here in just a minute. But I really want to get this in because this story has flown completely under the radar to every other sensational thing that's going on in the country right now. But this woman is so sincere, and she talks like us, good rural Southerner in Kentucky. And listen to what happened to her brother.
Hello all. Senator Kennedy, Administrator Ingalls. I'm Donna Rohr, T.J. Hoover's sister. I was there. I saw what happened to my brother. They prepared to recover his organs while he was still alive. During that honor walk, his eyes were open. He was tracking me, and they told me it was just reflexes. Then during the heart cath, he was thrashing, crying, and grabbing the doctor's hands to stop him. Even after those signs, the organ procurement process continued until the physician refused to proceed. One of the organization's own coordinators called the home office after the doctor refused. She was told, "Find another surgeon or you'll lose your job because we're finishing this case." My brother almost died that day. That should never happen to anyone. Laws and standards were clearly violated. Those responsible must be held accountable. When they finally stopped and acknowledged TJ was still alive, they sent him home with me and said, "Make him comfortable. He will not last." Well, it's been 5 years and he's still here. I'm grateful.
There's a gentleman crying in the background. It's a little bit distracting if you couldn't see the faces of the people in the room, but that's what you're hearing in the back. That's not a protester. We'll let her finish, but this woman's brother, they were trying to let him die to take his organs, and he knew it, and he was fighting to stay alive, and she had to watch all this go down because of the pressure to take that guy's organs, and she's an eyewitness to it. Listen to the rest of the soundbite.
Every day for that, but he is not the same. He has nightmares. He struggles remembering things. And he asked me, "Sis, why did they want to kill me?" I don't have an answer for him. I'm just a sister. But I know what I saw. I had to quit my job to take care of him full time. We're barely scraping by. My life is taking care of my brother, and it wears me out sometimes. But this isn't just about TJ. Families deserve confidence that every patient is treated safely and every safeguard is followed before organ recovery is ever considered. We're talking about real lives and real families like mine. I want immediate action beginning here in Kentucky. I want every person who hurt TJ and other patients identified and held accountable under the law. All of these people should never be allowed to provide patient care again, because if we don't act, this will happen again. I'm not going anywhere. I'm TJ's sister, and I will keep fighting until the people responsible are held accountable, so no other family has to live what we're living through.
And her to have the courage. You got people regular in life have this trauma, and then they've got the courage to stand up in front of the whole country yesterday, because this was televised live, to tell that horrifying. That is nightmare Stephen King stuff. And it reminded me of another case. Sometimes the only way I can relate to stories is think back on the past. When you get a certain age, you've got a lot of stories. And I remember sitting in the newsroom. I was over at Channel 6. We got a phone call to the assignment desk. That's where a lot of the news tips, we had a tip line. They would come in that way. And the person on the desk that night just sent it to me. I was the night beat reporter, and I usually would catch all the incoming stuff while we vetted out what was news. And this woman, and I'm trying to be delicate here, it was a young mother's voice on the other end of the phone, and she wasn't that articulate. She talked like the people I grew up with. Let me just put it that way. She didn't know how to express herself, but I immediately, through tears, I heard her say, her first words to me on the phone were, "They took my baby's eyes." And I thought, okay, I'm dealing with a nut. I'm just telling you all the truth. I thought, I got to get this kook off the phone. I went, "What do you mean they took your baby's eyes? Who took your baby's eyes?" She goes, "My baby died. They took my baby's eyes." I said, "Who took your baby's eyes?" She said, "Down at the coroner's office where the dead people are." I remember every word and the way she sounded. That raised alarm bells. And so to cut the story a little bit shorter, it turns out there was a situation, and this wound up all in the news. She was one of the first people to come forward. I don't remember how her child died, but her child died and was sent down to the Jefferson County Coroner's Office to be examined. Anytime a kid dies, they've got to do a complete report, make sure there's no foul play. I think the kid died of something natural. But while they had possession of the child, they removed the corneas from this child and sold them somewhere outside the system. I don't know if it was black market. It's been 30-something years, so I'm trying to remember the details. But they were just harvesting corneas from corpses that came in without the permission of the people, the family members of the bodies that were brought into the coroner's office. And it was shocking. So the way she found out is they got permission to get the body back, took the young child down to the funeral home, and when they were getting ready to prepare the body, the funeral home noticed it, and somehow the mother saw it, and as you would imagine, she was quite emotional. I'm just saying these stories to say I've seen both sides of this. I've seen the miracle of organ transplants. I've known people in my personal life that were on those lists clinging for something so they could stay alive. And I know people that genuinely are organ donors for the right reason. And thank God we've got a head of HHS now that cares to spend the time to look into this stuff. Our government we just spent a whole hour when the show started on the abuses of Fauci and his agency. When we lose faith in the whole medical apparatus, we're really in a bad way in this country. If you ever turn it completely over to government, these kind of abuses will get even worse, and you'll never know about them. But luckily, somebody's paying attention. Reforms are happening. This group in Kentucky got caught. All of this stuff needs to be investigated. But I'm of two minds because it's a nightmare scenario, and I get the people that would be apprehensive to ever want to participate in an organ donor if you thought you'd wind up in that position. But at the same time, I think it's an exception to how the system works, and we've got to do our best to safeguard that system because it saves lives, and it's one of the most humane things people can do in their own passing is to give somebody else the gift of life. Some of you may have even received organs that way, but what a crazy story. All right, real quick, we're watching Trump. He's like Stephen Miller's got the floor right now. We'll listen to him ramble during the break. If we got anything to bring you, we'll let you know about it on the other side. Back here in just a minute. All right, y'all, 335 Axiom Tax Resolution Group bringing you the show tonight. All the stuff I've been talking about in the last year and a half, every one of us are paying for it. The sad thing is sometimes the government can be so confusing with the tax code. You could wind up with a bill you just can't pay. There's no way you're going to be able to pay it, and you don't know what to do. I've known plenty of people that got in through sometimes no fault of their own, sometimes just bad math from a CPA. Perry Cronin is ready to help you out of that situation. He set up Axiom just to handle things like this, to help people get out of the lurch with the IRS, to get a settlement for less than you owe, or a payback plan, or both, so that you can just move on to the next tax bill that's also on the way. He is a total pro, knows more about this than probably anybody in the country. We're lucky to have him here so we can do this kind of thing face to face. Axiom Tax Resolution Group, great operation, great family over there, Perry and his team. Y'all reach out to him and sit down with him in person and handle this stuff at Axiom Tax Resolution Group, 205tax.com, 205tax.com. All right, Trump's taking questions. Let's dip into this. AJ, we'll try to stay on track and do the bottom break, but we'll go back to it if he's still going. Here's Trump live from the White House.
Over something that I saw one of the analysts said they used to laugh at it in the Justice Department when something like that was referred. But Merrick Garland prosecuted two very decent people and sent them to jail. I wasn't president. I would have given them a pardon in 2 seconds. But I wasn't. This was after I left. They waited till after I left, and then they prosecuted these two people, and they ought to be ashamed of themselves. So when you see that happen, you sort of say maybe he should. What he did is far more serious than a lot of crimes, frankly. But they prosecuted two people when nothing like that has ever taken place before.
Mr. President, on munitions, you posted overnight that the U.S. has a massive amount, and
right.
You denied that there were any shortages. There is a supplemental request for $21 billion to restock. So why is that request still there if there's
Well,
no
because we
urgency?
need more all the time. I mean, we need more. Look, we gave tremendous amount to Ukraine. The Biden people did. And they were given free of charge. No charge. No charge. Billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. And fortunately, I built up so much during my term. I rebuilt the military and also loaded it up with a lot of stuff. And we have certain types of munitions that are very powerful, that we have unlimited, virtual unlimited supply. We have others where it's a little bit tighter, and we're getting them in on a daily basis. As you know, our defense companies are building more plants right now than at any point in history. They're building plants for the Patriots, for the Tomahawks, for everything. But we have certain types of munitions which are very, they may not be as accurate. They may not be, they're not as elite. We have elite too, but we're watching that very closely. But we have certain types which are very powerful and very good, and we have an unlimited supply, and so we're in great shape. But with that being said, we always want more. We have to have more. We have other things maybe come up. You maybe come up and maybe don't come up. Hopefully nothing else does come up. But we're in very good shape. We have literally massive amounts of ammunition.
All right, so yeah, he's going deep and wide on a lot of things. We need to keep the show on time, though, so let's do that. We'll take this break. We'll come back and hear maybe more from the president as he's being asked about a myriad of things, as you would expect. Still no Iran deal today. We never know if that's going to be back in the news or not. We'll hear more in just a minute. Y'all stay tuned. Leland Live. Michelson Laser Vision bringing you the show this hour. Dr. Mark, Dr. Jennifer, what a wonderful practice. Y'all know my story by now. I'll give you the quick version. I did LASIK 7 years ago, still 2015. I'd do it again tomorrow. And I was as hesitant as some of you. I absolutely wasn't going to do it. I had no intention to do it. I sort of lucked into getting the education that they give on how it works just because I had a business meeting down with Dr. Michelson. And that's when my eyes were open. Yeah, I know that's a pun, but I'm just going to say it anyway. And if you want another one, I haven't looked back. It is just beautiful to see the world through your own eyes. It's, you know, there are weird situations where I enjoy it. I always talk about when I travel, I love to look out on an open road landscape of the mountains or something beautiful like that. But it's also when you get up in the middle of the night and have to pee. It's just little things that are really a big part of your life. You get up, you're fumbling around through the house. I remember how I used to have to find my glasses, or most of the time I would sleep in my contacts. Some of y'all do this too. I'd sleep in my contacts and they were stuck to my eyeballs like saran wrap. I could barely see a thing. I'd open one eye and try to make it to the bathroom. Hope my aim was good. That was when I was single. It didn't really matter as much as it does now, but you got to keep that aim, fellas. With LASIK, man, I just wake up and go to the bathroom. Or if I hear a bump in the night, I can see what I'm looking at and diagnose the problem real quick. We had a police officer one time that pulled over. I thought she was trying to pull me over when I left the station one night, a Homewood officer. I wish I'd gotten her name. She said she's a big fan of the show, listener, and said she was on her way to get LASIK for her job. She didn't want to be vulnerable to glasses. If she ever had to mix it up with somebody or make it difficult to arrest, it would be good to not have to have that in encumbrance. That's a vulnerability sometimes. Also, days like today when it was raining, and my glasses would get wet. I'd try to clean them off real quick, and then they get wet again. You don't deal with that. When you get that out of your life, you don't deal with it anymore. Michelson Laser Vision, the legendary practice that I would send you to. It's the only place I would send you. These are your eyes. You need the best care. They have the best care. And they're going to be here down the road to take care of you for whatever else pops up, which they've done for me as well. Michelson Laser Vision. Check them out. See if it's right for you. You kind of owe that to yourself, Michelson. Laservision.com. Well, the network's pulled away from Trump. He was starting to take some questions. It was the same questions, a lot of it about the Iran conflict. One of the newest things that's up and in front of people is whether or not we're running out of not really ammo, but some of the missile systems, the defensive missile systems in particular. So there all this reporting that the supplies are low and that handicaps our capability in the region. By putting that out, you're creating a vulnerability and giving the Iranians an upper hand. But the mainstream media that are putting these stories out, they don't care about that. They want us to have a quagmire and to really lose in this standoff with the Iranians. So there's been some cloudy information because Hegseth, on one hand, there was a report today that when they had the big Camp David cabinet meeting last week, was that last week or this week? Maybe that was this week. It's all running together. That Trump confronted Hegseth over this issue. He didn't think he was being square with him about it. On one hand, when they're going to Congress to get additional funding for resupply, they're going to lowball the situation as best they can, or they're going to paint the most dire circumstances in order to get the funding. Then again, there's the national security version and how much we've burned through in the theater as well. I will say that the military experts are saying we're having to learn to adapt to conventional warfare nowadays involving drones and cheap technology, which is extremely lethal. And we've got some of these super sophisticated overbuilt systems that we're putting up against very early in this thing. We saw the systems we were putting out there to take down drones. There was bad math. We had multi-million-dollar missiles taking down super cheap drones. And so it was causing us a lot more to defend ourselves against the drone attacks. In some ways, the Iranians were depleting our resources by forcing us to fire those missiles. Pretty smart on their part. But we've adapted. We've got some new technology. Some of that got adapted from the Ukraine battle space. And it's a lot more drone-on-drone action. But that's the future of warfare. It's flying robots and autonomous things. And we've already used a drone naval vessel to do a rescue in this thing. And that's true of all warfare. If you're a military historian, you'll know this a whole lot better than me. But from my sort of amateurish read of history and honestly watching good battlefield movies, adaptation is part of every conflict. We had to learn as I remember this story from the past too. We had these. We'll go all the way back to Somalia. One of the things that got our people trapped there during the Black Hawk Down incident was that we didn't deploy the right vehicles. They had put these heavy tanks in there that couldn't get down those tiny streets, and the tanks literally, rather than these smaller, more nimble APCs, personnel carriers, we had these giant tracked vehicles which were slow and couldn't get to the rescue. After that, we started shifting to this concept where we're going to be a more lethal fighting force, and we're going to move on wheels. I was actually part of a mission at one point to investigate wheeled personnel carriers. It's a long story. Wound up traveling to some other countries to see their offerings of, we wanted to be able to move our guys on wheels instead of tracks with these armored vehicles. And I think the military eventually landed on the type vehicles they wanted to use. The MRAPs came along about that same time. So you have to adapt. We were having to adapt in those days. That was a follow-on also, not just Somalia, but the Iraq war, where the Iranians, by the way, who were part of that battle space, taught the Iraqi rebels and whoever was shooting at us how to make improvised explosive devices, which we all now call IEDs. And similar to this situation, you had people that could take some threaded pipe and some improvised bombs and learn to camouflage that on roadsides and hit our vehicles as our convoys would move through. And some of these became very sophisticated. Were able to flip heavy vehicles. They could easily take out a Humvee. A lot of people got injured that way. We've got wounded people walking all over this country from the technology that the Iranians paid for and put on that battlefield. So you learn as you go in every conflict. And at one point, the military's goal was to have be able to fight a two-war front like World War II on two different continents with a full complement of everything we needed, a modern Navy and the missile systems and all that. But things are changing at such a rapid pace that we've got to find cheaper ways to fight cheaper technology that can also still cause these problems. And the drone swarms are a new thing too. Well, relatively new. We've watched this go down in Ukraine in that battlefront. And honestly, the Ukrainians, because of desperation, necessity is the mother of invention. The Ukrainians have developed some pretty interesting technology that we're now copying and reversing here in the United States. When it comes to technology, and by the way, I've got to throw this in there. Barack Obama was the genesis of some of this Iran stuff. We had some idiot called, was it yesterday or the day before, trying to claim, he didn't send money or whatever to the Iranians. He clearly did. The Iranians used that money to invest further into their capabilities, which led to the red alert situation that we're dealing with now. But they also armed the Houthis, they armed Hezbollah, they armed Hamas heavily in these very areas. So a lot of that stuff's still getting mopped up in the region. But one of the things Obama did, and he never got accused of directly doing it on purpose, but I've always found it suspicious. The Iranians had no drone technology. Now, the cat's been out of the bag for a long time, and inevitably they would come to steal this technology like they do. Chinese do the same thing. But we allowed a drone to land in Iran during the Obama administration, and it was intact when they found it. In other words, it just landed. It didn't crash. We didn't send aircraft in to blow it up. We just left it. We let it land. The Iranians captured it. It was one of many incidents where they humiliated the Obama administration. Remember when they put our Navy sailors on their knees and put guns to their heads and made them put their hands behind their heads on a boat? They boarded one of our boats, just clowned us, and yet we kept trying to appease them. So that a lot of people believe, a lot of military analysts believe that was, whether intentional or not, and I'm suspicious of Obama because he was so sympathetic to the Iranians maintaining power in the region, that transfer of that drone was somewhat intentional. And the Iranians took the thing back to the lab, so to speak, reverse engineered everything on it, and suddenly they were in the drone business. And it became, now we see the lethality that they've developed from that genesis. They didn't have a single damn drone. They could make paper airplanes. That was it. Until they got that drone that somehow mysteriously just perfectly landed in a way that they could reverse it, and off they go. And so now we're having to fight that with our, some would say, over sophisticated technology until our war machine back home can play catch up on the improvised things that we've come up with to deal with this drone problem. But yet again, it goes back to the Obama administration and the foolishness of these people when it came to dealing with the Middle East. Some of the supporters of this guy try to pretend like he didn't have any. I mean, come on, this dude botched Afghanistan. There was the Osama bin Laden capture or kill. We had so much more information on Al Qaeda if he and that idiotic vice president had held off on announcing this to the world for 3 weeks. There were assets that that scooped up technology. We had laptops and videos and all kind of stuff that came out of that compound that were of tremendous value, where we could have rolled up that whole network in very short order with all this information. But because Obama had to get out in front of the public that night and announce to the world that he was dead, which every president has a right to do, he got ahead of our folks that wanted to use this information and let the network know that we had all this stuff. So they changed their tactics and went underground. And there were a lot of people that could have been captured that, again, went on to maim and harm Americans in different battle spaces after that. So we do a lot of foolish stuff and have done a lot of foolish stuff. And the technology and the back and forth over it is still an issue for the United States. And, of course, we're still dealing with it with this situation today. But, again, I went off on that whole tangent because we just saw that question in the part that we were able to listen to. One of the reporters was asking about the depletion of those resources. Let's talk about your own armaments for a minute, and let's talk about Huey Town Pawn. I am pleased to tell you that Huey Town Pawn has the AR-12s back in stock. They got them in that desert color, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to go over there and grab one. I just think they're cool. I don't need one. Who needs one? You just want one. It's America. Do it. Those AR-12s are cool, and they've got those in stock. Still got some Glocks left. By the way, the AR-12s are only $279. The Glocks are $399. These are pre-owned law enforcement Glocks while they last. He didn't get many in, and I don't know how many he's got left, but Tommy told me to keep talking about that. I think he's got more orders that he's trying to get in. Those are hit or miss. You never know when their number's gonna come up. They're gonna be able to get another batch of those. Incredible selection, and this has been true since day one, of sound suppression. Tommy was smart when the laws changed on sound suppression and knew there'd be a run on the industry, so he kind of caused that run. He was like me during COVID. I went and bought all the toilet paper. He went and bought all the sound suppressors he could get his hands on, put them in their vault over in Huey Town, so that when that happened, they would still have supply, and he's got a room full. So if you're getting ready for hunting season and you want suppression on your hunting rig or whatever it is you need it for, I found it interesting that the shooter out in Idaho that stopped that bad guy was using a suppressor. This guy was highly trained. I'm in the market. I'm looking at how that all works. But they've got them for you at Huey Town Pawn. Brand names you're going to love and respect. Pre-owned stuff all in the store too, because it is a pawn shop. What a nice gun counter and a nice group of people to do your trading with. Go see them and get to know them. They're on Brook Lane Drive in Huey Town. Huey Town Pawn. Back in a minute. It's 3:53. One of the greatest songs ever. You ever seen that meme, AJ, where there's a picture of Bill Withers sitting on a stool. He's singing, singing his heart out. It's just a black and white photograph, and it says, "Ain't no sandwich when she's gone." Every time I hear that song, somewhere I had in my mind the trivia where he says, "I know, I know, I know." It does it 28 times. I could be wrong on the number, but I think it's 28 times. Somebody counted it. Good song. Who's that covered by? Who is that, by the way?
Hold on 1 second. That is Taj Farron.
All right. Okay. All right. A little credit there. Birmingham Broker bringing you the show tonight on this thundery Thursday. Hey, that's got alliteration, I think. Y'all, bhambroker.com can get that car or truck or SUV flat sold out there in the real world for you for a retail price. You need to stay retail. Cars are expensive, man. That means your value's up. There are buyers everywhere right now. Craig and Keith will tell you they can sell everything they're getting their hands on right now because there's always pressure in the car market. Cars get older. It's just time to trade. Your life situation changes. There's always this trading pressure more frequently than, of course, houses or whatever. And they're right in the middle of it. So they know where your ride is worth the most and will get it out there and get it marketed. Y'all, it is a cool way to do it. It's a smart way to do it. It's the only way I'll ever do it again, and that is make a trade. bhambroker.com, bhambroker.com. Let them sell it for you. Let them get you top dollar. Makes a whole lot of sense. Downtown Birmingham on 4th Avenue South. Y'all want to hear some Democrats get booed? The Boo Birds are out all of a sudden. It starts with Mom Donnie in New York. He goes out to Staten Island and decides to attend a police event, and they booed his little commie Islamo self right off that stage. Take a listen to this. Now he's, I'm sure that was an F-bomb. He's in the background trying to talk and smile and pretend. You can't hear him as well. All you can hear is the people in the foreground. But he immediately exited that stage. He is not being received like he wanted it to. The Italian Americans are pissed at him. Some of the Jewish Americans, how in the hell they ever vote for this guy? This is a pro-police crowd. He's trying to gut the police department. And so that was just fun. It's fun to see him get challenged on the main stage. And then there's this surprise. I didn't see this one coming. I just thought I'd stitch these two pieces of sound together. This is Amy Klobuchar. She's at some town hall type event. It's in the background. There's a little backdrop that says Minnesota Farm Fest. So here's Amy Klobuchar. Isn't she running for something else? She's a senator, of course, from there. Kind of a strange lady. She gets sort of laughed off the stage and booed when she claims she was strong on border security. Take a listen to this.
Amy?
I've long believed and supported funding for order at the border, and I have worked well with law enforcement in Minnesota for years. But what I...
Quiet.
So this reminded me of that time Occasional Cortex was sitting at some town hall. It looked like a school auditorium, and she's on the stage, and they started going after her in the Bronx because of the crappy conditions of her own district. These are their own people, and that's what's important about this. These are folks back home. Mondami's he didn't make an appearance in Texas and get booed. These are the folks that are in his city, and here's Klobuchar right there in the middle of that room, and the people just found her absurdities laughable. These people have for years gotten away with saying these platitudes about themselves because there's no real media scrutiny when they do it. There's just none, but the internet never forgets. And when you get clowned in an incident like this, everybody's going to see it that afternoon. Will it have any effect? No. Both of them will just blow it off and go on to the next people. It's easy. It's real easy when you're in politics to say, well, we always have detractors. They justify themselves that way. I've been in the car riding down the road listening to them talk, where they'll say things, well, at least all you got to have is 51% of the crowd, and you can stay, in office and keep getting things done because they're getting things done, right? So she'll tell herself that and go on to the next thing where some blue-haired Democrat crowd will cheer her like she is the second coming. Crocker Moving Services. You'll be cheering for them when they come get that big, heavy stuff out of your house and move it so you don't have to. That's why they set up Crocker Moving Services. They're the pros at it. They know what they're doing, and they do it all day long. I love the 2-hour rate thing. I always try to remember to make sure I emphasize that. If you just got something big that just needs to be moved. In one case, a few summers ago, I had a safe that I bought on a whim. Didn't even consider how I was going to move a 1,000-pound object, but they came and did it like it was nothing and did it so well. Pool tables, pianos, couches. Some of you don't want to pick that stuff up. For their bare minimum, they'll come out for at least 2 hours and get this done for you. Talk to them about how that works. And if you're ready to pack up and move somewhere else, they're ready too. They can take you across the country. Eric's a great guy, runs a tight ship. This is who you want moving your stuff. It's CrockerMovingServices.com, CrockerMovingServices.com. Back here in just a minute. Y'all stay tuned.